Hello again to this video clip series that I'm calling My Journey to God in a Very Secularized World. We've been talking about, because I thought it was pretty important, about this great confusion in this period. And in particular, I was talking more about this part about the people who are still praying and are in confusion and have the great temptation to leave the church in this period of great confusion. Probably some of you have probably read the classical book of St. Louis Marie de Montfort, in his True Devotion to Mary. And he speaks about in this period there's a great separation between those who truly have true humility with Mary and those who have false humility or pride with Satan. And I want to repeat, as I think I've said before, it's very important in this period to put things in our head that will help us to go toward virtue, and virtue that will lead us away from virtue and away from humility. That's why many times I've said to read one meditation slowly from the Blue Book of Gobi every day, instead of, like many people here in Italy, they listen to a YouTube video of Father Minutella. In fact, I even have a good friend, I told him many times, but he doesn't want to listen to this, that he continues to listen to Father Minutella because, you know, it gives us satisfaction, because he criticizes all the bad guys in the church, and so it makes us, puffs up our pride, you might say. Oh yeah, they're all bad. But the more you concentrate on the bad guys in the church, the more we become blind to our own sinfulness and lack of humility. That's why it's so important to read. I told this one woman that I know that does the same thing. It says, read the lives of the saints. I said to her, I want to read the lives of the saints who followed Christ rather than the lives of those who follow Satan today. But she just loves reading what all the people that are following Satan today. She loves doing that. And I found on a few years ago on the internet that about a year before Don Stefano Gobi died, there was this on the internet a forum that talked about Don Stefano Gobi and so on. And in this website, which unfortunately took off later, this website, they said that Don Stefano Gobi privately, not like public or anything, but privately, like after a conference or something like that, he said to several people privately, he said, and this is 2010, before he died in 2011, he said, pray for the next pope, but do not listen to him. And this is really how true saints talk. In other words, Don Stefano Gobi didn't say, oh, he's going to be a real bad pope, he's bad, terrible, all these things, everything else. He just says, pray for the next pope and don't listen to him. In other words, he's saying, get on with becoming a saint. That's the real solution for all the problems. If I become a saint, I'm contributing for the church, the world, maximum. But if I sit there and want to just criticize all the bad guys in the church, I'm not becoming holy. In fact, I'm becoming more blind to my own sinfulness and lack of pride. You might also find in some of the things I had quoted before, you might find also in the article that I wrote, the danger of Don Alessandro Minutella. Another article I wrote several years ago to a person that I met on the internet who was leaning very heavily toward the right, to go into a special group, lead the church, and find that perfect group when the church is going all bad. You can find more details on this. His name was Gerald, and in the title of the article that you could find on my index of my website was called The Great Difficulty in Overcoming Pharisaism, the great difference between schismatic traditionalism and the false pope prophecies. And in that article, trying to describe a little bit about true humility and false humility and so on, I found a little article in the life of Saint Philip Neri. One reads an episode which is entitled "False Holiness," and this is what we're dealing with. In this little paragraph there, it says, "In a convent in Rome lived a nun who had the reputation of great sanctity. It was rumored among the people that the religious, enriched with heavenly gifts, knew the future and would operate wonderful miracles. When the Pope learned of this, he sent Father Philip to that convent so that he might see what there was of it on the miraculous virtues of the religious. On that day, it was raining heavily, and the streets were all muddy." This is at Rome, you know. "So Philip came to the monastery with his shoes all muddy. He immediately asked to speak to the holy nun believed to be holy, which as soon as she stepped into the parlor, with a deep bow, she says, 'How may I serve you?' The saint, who was sitting comfortably in his chair without even responding to the greeting, shows her his shoes, saying, 'First of all, Reverend Mother, would you please take off these muddy shoes and then clean them well?' The nun drew back in horror, and in words very resentful, remonstrated against a course of action so rude, saying, 'I am surprised that you would dare to make me such a proposal.' Philip was silent and stood quietly and left the convent to return home. Presenting himself the next day to the Pope to report on the outcome of his mission, he said, 'Most Holy Father, this nun is certainly not a saint and does not do miracles because she lacks the fundamental virtues.'" Going back to this letter they wrote to Gerard, who's kind of leaving the church and so on. He had wrote in that letter to me, he wrote to me, "Another disagreement we have is that there is poison in Vatican II documents." And that's why I responded to him a little bit. I said to him, I says, "What is the fundamental difference between the schismatic traditionalists who put themselves above the magisterium of the church and the Protestant reformers 400 years ago?" And then he quoted this priest who explains all this to lead the church. He says, "You can research Father Luigi Villa. They have all led to Pope Francis." And so then I said to him, "According to you, everything that Father Luigi Villa writes must be without error because it serves your desired agenda." "No," I said to him, "No, I do not have time to follow everyone who wants to interpret the words of Christ as they want, picking and choosing from the magisterium of the church as they decide." And Gerard had written, "They have all led to Francis." And I said, "Is the same mentality as the Protestant reformers. Why not break off from the Catholic Church 400 years ago instead of after Pope Pius XII, as the Sedevacantist do with his logic? You know, how would you explain to a Protestant that what you are doing is somehow fundamentally different from what Martin Luther did and all the rest of the Protestant reformers?" And I wrote to him, I says, "There's an enormous and fundamental difference between negating an ecumenical council, more than 2,000 bishops present, and saying that we have arrived to the prophecies of St. Francis of Assisi, or Blessed Catherine Emmerich, or St. Hildegard, Doctor of the Church, or Bruno Cornacchiola, who Our Lady appeared to him in Rome at the Three Fountains in Rome." And because why don't we stop this video clip here, and I'll continue. And this my writings to Gerard, trying to convince him to not leave the Catholic Church, even though things are very, very difficult and confusing. And God bless you, and Mary guide you.